Well, welcome to the Life Safety Podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Got a couple special guests today, and I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Go ahead, Jeff.
All right. My name is Jeff Brewer with National Guard Products. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for NGP. Been in the doors, frame, and hardware business for a little over 20 years now. So I've been with NGP for I'm in my fifth year, and couldn't be happier about it. A lot of exciting things going on at NGP right now.
And my name is Aron Fleischmann. I've been with NGP for not quite a year. The Director of Product Management and Design. The hardware-specific industry, new to that through NGP, but I've been in the architectural wood door and fire door and acoustic door business for the last 10 years.
Nice. Well, good. Okay. Well, main thing I wanted to start off and talk about is gaps, and specifically excessive clearances on fire doors. So, as you well guys know, there's a pandemic of sort when it comes to gaps, right? When it comes to excessive clearances. Tell me a little bit about your perspective on the clearances and what you guys, what kind of product you have to remediate that, and just in general from the inspection side, what you're seeing out there when it comes to excessive gaps.
Aron, you want to field that first?
Yeah, sure. So just from the perspective of the codes and NFPA 80, the gaps are a prevalent part of the checklist upon inspection. And so what they inspect would be the perimeter of the door, the top of the door, and the bottom of the door. And so on the wood doors, you're allowed 1/8 of an inch on both sides of the door, as well as the top, and 3/4 at the bottom. And then the metal door, 3/16 on the top and sides, and then 3/4 at the bottom. And so really the predominant failure that we see when it comes to that code clearance perspective is around the sides of the door. Typically it's the latch edge, but it can be all the other components as well.
Okay.
Yeah, on that note, as far as the NFPA 80 and the requirements, I mean, Aron talked about the max dimensions allowed. There's a plus or minus in there depending on door type, but 1/8, again, head and jamb, and 3/4 at the bottom. When doors are being inspected, what we've come to learn through a survey of FDAI's fire door assembly inspectors, that excessive gaps are, when a door is found to be non-compliant, 80% of the time, excessive gaps are noted as an issue there. So it's one of the largest. It's actually tied for first as far as the biggest offender, if you will, on that list of items that are checked.
And what would you think causes that? You think it's just installation error? Is it settlement of the building? Is it all of the above? Is it just basically over the years negligence? What do you think? Why do you think that it is the high failure rate when it comes to fire doors? What would you guess that's the reason why?
Yeah, sure. All the above. They all factor in. When you look at the door, the frame, the wall, the floor condition, they all work together as a system.
Right.
And so if any one of those components is out of spec, or even within spec, and then all those specs, tolerances that are allowed stack up, then that could lead to a condition of an excessive gap. No fault to the door, the frame, or the installer or anything. It's just could be a culmination of all those events. And that's on a new installation, and then just even over time, the use and abuse of doors. They sag, buildings sag, walls move just a little bit. So all that certainly factors in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's when we started developing these products, which we'll probably touch on in a little bit more detail as we go along here today, but we thought about this as an aftermarket type of a situation that we were running into as far as excessive gaps are concerned. But when you said, is it installation, is it settling, and so on and so forth, it's because NFPA 80 states upon installation the fire door must be inspected, and then annually thereafter. It's a new construction issue as well, for sure.
Is that where you're seeing a lot of new construction doors are being installed non-compliant from the get-go?
We do see that, absolutely.
And where does the 1/8 inch come from? And I know there's 3/16 on a metal door, but why is it those dimensions? Where does that come from exactly? Why isn't it a 1/4 inch? Why isn't it 1/2 inch? Where does the 1/8 inch and the 3/16 come from? Other than I know NFPA 80, but is there any backstory to that or background that you guys might be able to share as why those dimensions are the dimensions that are code requirement?
Well, from the perspective of the testing that's required on these products, Exactly where the eighth of an inch came from, I'm not aware of that, but from the performance of the product in the testing, it has to pass an endurance part as well as coupled with a hose stream.
Okay.
And you have to pass them both to pass the test to have a certified product. And so in the endurance part of the testing is where the door gets up to about 1,800 degrees at the 90-minute mark. And so there's a lot of movement, potential movement of the door and the assembly. So that eighth of an inch is the controlled dimension to maintain the integrity of the opening. And then the hose stream pushes against the door against the face of the stop. And so again, that dimension is it allows for enough of the door to still remain in contact with the stop to help provide integrity to the overall system through that test.
So that makes sense. So ultimately, though, when it's tested at those tolerances.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
That makes sense.
And just to add, Ruben, I don't have a tremendous amount of data to back this up, but but what I'll say is that eighth of an inch specifically had recently been challenged, I think, as to how did it come to be, and what if it were larger, and so there was some call it sort of some independent testing done with larger gaps, and the results were not good.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So there has been research outside of that to see if that was warranted or not.
That's correct.
Oh, good. Okay. And so when it comes to these gaps, how do you actually measure the gaps? Because I think what I've seen out in the field is there's a misnomer of how you actually determine that clearance. Is it from, you guys tell me, face of the door to the face of the frame? Is it, if there's a soffit or a door stop, does that constitute a gap? How are those gaps actually measured?
Yeah, so the measurement is actually taken on the hinge face or the pull face of the door, pull side of the door, and then so it would be the distance between the edge of the door and the adjacent same area of the frame.
Okay.
And so there's a very simple gap gauge if you don't have another way to check it, but so the gap gauge, the eighth of an inch, this has a step in it at an eighth of an inch. And so the eighth of an inch, you would insert the gap gauge, and where it, this will tell you if it's in compliance or not. So if obviously if it's bigger than an eighth, it's out of compliance around the perimeter. And then it has a 3/4 inch thick step as well. So to check the clearance at the bottom of the door.
Now, when you're using a tool like that, or just in general, if there's any wiggle room that's non-compliant, or if it's tight fitting, how does that go as far as when you're measuring it? If you put it in, if you insert it and it fits and it's snug, does that constitute equal measurement? But if there's any wiggle room, would that be deemed excessive clearance?
Technically, yeah.
Technically, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So you got the gaps, and then as far as I know you guys got some products that y'all could use to remediate these gaps that are listed. What kind of products do you have for that? Let's talk about undercut, for example, which is greater than 3/4 of an inch. Yeah.
So for the bottom of the door solution, the undercut that you mentioned, we've got a product called the 9590. And what it is, essentially it's a two-part system where, where it's stainless steel and it's applied to the face of the door, and it has a secondary piece that's attached to the opposing face of the door. Contains a strip of intumescent to help fill the void, in the event of a fire. And then we have two end caps that go on it. So how you would position it would be based on the clearance that you're trying to achieve to get back within spec.
Okay.
It has a vertical location that you can set, up to a maximum of 1.5 inch undercut gap. So,
oh wow, that's pretty big clearance there. So up to 1.5 inch. You can use this product to remediate and bring it back up to compliance.
That's correct.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the nice part about all these products is that you can apply them with the door on the hinges. So you do not need to take the door off the hinges or to remove it from the facility to remediate them.
Nice.
Yeah, and the way that the 9590 was designed and is installed as well, it's a non-handed item as well. Okay. So it's a little bit more. It's friendlier from an install perspective that way, I guess, as well.
Got you. So I'm looking at this product here, and I believe this one's the 9990, and that's for the top header or top of the door gap. So it looks very similar to the 9590. Can you touch on how to remediate gaps at the top edges?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's nearly the same in design as the bottom of the door solution. The attachment method is the same. It's an L-shaped bracket that essentially the horizontal component of the L goes into the gap to bring your clearance back into your gap clearance back into compliance. It as well attaches to the faces of the door, and then has an intumescent strip that's on the top side of it to help fill the gap and protect that area.
Okay, so I understand the undercut. This particular product is listed for gaps in excess of up to 1.5 inches. What about the 9990?
Half inch. Maximum.
Half inch. Okay, so if you have a gap up to half inch, you could use this product to restore that integrity of the top edge.
That's correct.
Okay. And then what about the hinge edges and the latch edge? What kind of solution do you have for those clearances that are excessive?
So we've got our Gap 90
Okay.
product. It's a 3-piece component. Contains a stop extender. That's the metal component here.
Okay.
And then it also contains a smoke seal and then the intumescent seal.
Okay.
And then the stop extender is applied to the soffit location. It needs to be applied where the gap exists, but for aesthetic purposes, typically it's just ran the full length of the side or across the head where it's the gap is out of control.
Okay. So if you had an issue where, let's say the door's kind of crooked and you can't really install the intumescent on the bottom portion, you could leave that portion off. Although ideally not aesthetically pleasing, that's something you could do to still be in compliance.
That's correct.
So you do need to have the 3 components where the gap is excessive.
That is correct. And
Okay.
this covers up to a 5/16 gap.
Oh, so it's
we're
up to 5/16.
up to 5/16, yes.
So in a scenario where there's a gap on the latch edge and it's half inch, so ideally you would probably have to shim the door to bring it into at least 5/16 or closer in conjunction with installing the Gap 90.
That's correct.
Okay, that's important to note because one might think that it's plug and play. I've installed it on the latch edge, I'm good to go, but it needs to be assurement needs to be made that it's less than 5/16 or equal to 5/16 rather.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So 5/16, half inch, and inch and a half.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm maybe getting ahead of you here, but something that a difference in these products in the way that they're installed. Aron described the 9590, which is the door bottom solution up to 1.5 inches undercut or clearance. It will bring that door back into compliance. And again, the 9990 product at the top of the door will solve a problem up to 1/2 inch. Those actually do change the dimension of the gap based on how they're installed.
Okay.
But with the Gap 90 product, that 3-part system, you're not changing unless you have a situation like you just mentioned where you're shimming that door over to change your gap. The Gap 90 does not change the gap itself. It makes sure that door is compliant. It's a UL certified solution, but your gap's still going to be large, so larger than 1/8 visually, and when you measure it the next year when you go about your inspection. So it's important to note that it is a UL certified product. Won't change the dimension of the gap, but does make the fire door compliant once again. But we need to make sure that we keep the paperwork associated with that UL compliance in our maintenance log, because the next year when you inspect that door, it may be flagged once again for excessive gaps on that jamb.
No, that's a good point. So if one's not familiar with this product and they see the gap, they may cite it, not knowing that there's a listed product that's installed to compensate for that gap.
Correct.
And go ahead.
Sorry, and one more note on that point is the stop extender, the metal components are stamped
Okay.
with the UL mark. So upon inspection, they'll know that the modification is a listed.
Okay. And when we say UL mark, what specific UL standard? Because I know a lot of times we use that term interchangeably. Is it a specific UL standard that we're looking for? Is it like a UL 10C or UL, or is it just UL?
Right. These products are all certified to the UL 10C positive pressure
Okay.
testing.
All right. And speaking of the testing method, obviously these products are listed specifically to compensate for excessive clearances on fire doors. How are they tested? Can you walk me through that process of what it takes to get these products listed and certified?
Sure. So from the doors themselves, they are intentionally made undersized to the gaps that we're trying to remediate. Ultimately with the solutions. And so the hardware is installed, on the doors and the frame. We do all the testing at third-party, certification labs, UL, Intertech, the like. And so when the doors, they build a wall, cement wall, steel frames, and then the doors and the product is installed. The test itself, there's anywhere from a 3-door test to a single door opening. And so how the test is conducted, it has 2 parts. The first part is an endurance part. That's where the furnace kicks on. And then the second part of it's the hose stream.
Okay.
The furnace part of it's a time temperature curve. It's obviously a controlled curve. It hits about 1,000 degrees at 10 minutes, and then for the 90-minute products, and it ramps on up to about 1,800 at the 90-minute mark. So it gets very hot very quick. That's also in a positive pressure environment where the pressure plane, is a controlled component as well. And then after the 90-minute mark, if you've gotten that far, then the wall is opened, and then they hit it with a hose stream. That's a 2-inch, fire hose nozzle with a 30 psi blast, and so that too is a controlled duration based on the square footage of the doors being tested and the wall. So
oh wow,
it's a pretty extreme environment.
Sounds like
to
it.
Pass.
And it's a pretty anxious 91.5 minutes.
It
Yeah,
is, Sure.
So that's pretty high temperature. It's 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit.
Correct.
And so it's maintained for 90 minutes that long.
Well,
Once it ramps up.
So it ramps up. So it's a gradual increase. After about the 10-minute mark, it starts to flatten. But yeah, so it goes from essentially about give or take 1,500 degrees at 20 minutes up to about 1,800 at the 90-minute mark. So over that 70-minute period, it's only gaining about 300, 600 degrees.
Gotcha.
I say only, but it's quite a bit.
Yeah, these products are a game changer because previous to these type of products being out to use to compensate for these gaps, you had to pretty much replace the whole frame in the door because the frame's not square, and so it's a game changer for the fire door market for sure. Here we got a continuous hinge. I know those are sometimes used as well. This is a surface continuous hinge that's used for sometimes to compensate for those gaps as well. So you could use one of these listed products, or you can use a continuous hinge. And from my experience in the field, what I've seen, you could use these to kind of massage the door into place and bring the door up higher. So that's another good component there that y'all have under your family of products to remediate fire doors. So.
Right, absolutely. It's the 3 components that we talked about: the door bottom, door top, and perimeter solutions. So under our gap guard family of products, but we do manufacture continuous hinges, and like you said, the full surface product in particular is one that we see utilized to mitigate these issues out in the field for sure.
Nice. So how long have I had these products out in the market now?
Well, it's we've been these 3 that we've talked about specifically. It's been a couple of years now. Maybe approaching 3 years. We've been testing since 2014.
Oh wow.
And a lot of expensive lessons learned along the way for sure to get to where we are today. But we started back in 2014 and began with a 20-minute solution and then graduated to a 45-minute solution and then ultimately achieved the 90-minute solution for the perimeter and then the bottom of the door, and then added the 9990 at the top of the door. I guess that's the most recent addition, Aaron, to the offering. Reason being is eliminates hardware conflicts that might present themselves in the field, and so it was a nice solution with regards to that. So we've been at this learning and refining the offering since 2014, and we're still doing that. As a matter of fact, we are committed to this space. We understand the importance around compliant fire doors and the built environment, and so we're continually engaging in R&D. Aaron's working on a product line extension for these that we'll be launching here in the next couple of months. So
nice.
maybe we can talk him into teasing that a little bit, not letting the cat completely out of the bag, but
yeah,
talk about it a little.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. If y'all got any new products on the horizon, if y'all can share whatever y'all could.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So The genesis of these products, it leads to good solutions, immediate remediation for sure. But throughout the use of these products, we continue to stay engaged with the customer. So from the installer to our channels, and so the feedback that we've received has been overwhelmingly successful for these products. But that also leads to, what about this? And, what else could we be using for opportunities? So meeting edges and alternate designs for door bottoms, as well as hardware type applications. Just common occurrences that once these products started to become sort of mainstream in use,
Right.
it led to a whole other body of questions for solutions. So we continue to stay engaged with the customer and try to continue to support them with realistic, practical product solutions.
Nice. Okay. So look out for some new products on the horizon, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. That's good to know. Anything else you guys want to share from your perspective in NGP?
Products like these are really kind of right in our wheelhouse. I mean, we pride ourselves on being a service first type of a business, and this we think provides a good solution to a real problem that we're seeing more and more of for sure. So we try to, like Aron said, I mean, the insight from the field and how to be easy to do business with is at the forefront of our R&D efforts. Obviously solve the problem, but solve the problem with the end customer in mind. Who's going to interact with the product and ultimately, do so with ease while reaching the intended result, which is a compliant fire door in this situation. But that's sort of our MO across the board, quite frankly, with all the things that we manufacture. We've been in business since 1935.
Oh, wow.
We've been around a long time. We're a third generation family owned business that really services the primary driver of everything that we do. So this is, again, allowed us to be innovative and really dig in with the end customer and learn what we need to do to be better in this space, but also just in general as a manufacturer. So it's a really good product offering, and it's just I think it's indicative of NGP in general, how we approach things.
I got a question about the NGP logo. So what's with the duck? So can you give me some backstory on the NGP and the ducks?
What duck?
Exactly.
So there is a duck head in the G, if you haven't noticed. But we've been ducks have been a part of NGP for a long time. It's the family that owns the business are passionate about ducks, their conservation, and hunting them from time to time as well. And I want to say in the mid '80s. We introduced ducks into our marketing collateral, and the rest is history. So It's kind of evolved from there. So anytime we can slap a duck on something, we certainly do it.
Nice. All right. Well, any closing remarks?
Appreciate the opportunity. Life safety products and solutions are certainly a need.
Oh, definitely.
Especially with the the reality and the application in healthcare and similar type of facilities, and so doing everything we can to help support them maintain compliance and do it in a solution driven, practical way.
Definitely.
And I'll say appreciate this and honestly the effort that you're putting in to deliver this message, because it is an awareness thing that we're dealing with as far as these types of products and their importance. And the products, obviously, the importance is the fact that the fire door is non-compliant, and we need to fix that, right? And so a lot of people don't understand what makes a fire door compliant. A lot of people don't understand, the importance of the fire door itself. So these types of programs are important to get that message out, because it's a life safety issue for sure. Today we're seeing a tremendous amount of it in the healthcare vertical, but it is absolutely not confined to the healthcare vertical as far as where these problems are found. They're in universities, they're in hospitality, they're everywhere. And we need to better understand, the impact of a non-compliant fire door and start fixing them.
No, definitely well said. And lastly, how can folks get a hold of you? Is it via email? Are you guys on LinkedIn, or what's your preferred method of contact if folks want to get a hold of you for, general inquiries.
Yeah, so to learn more about NGP, it's www.ngp.com.
Okay.
Me specifically, my email is aronf@ngp.com.
Okay.
And that'd be the best way.
All right.
You're not going to give them your cell phone number?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, again, ngp.com, and I'm Jeff Brewer, so jeffb@ngp.com.
Okay. Well, good, man. Well, thanks for coming on board and on joining the podcast. Really excited to put this one out and get some more education on excessive clearances. As I feel wholeheartedly that it's one of the big issues in the fire door market that still needs some further education and further compliance. So thanks for joining us.
I appreciate that. When Aron finally lets the cat out of the bag on the new offering, will you let us come back and talk about it?
Yeah, definitely. We'll come back and talk about the new products.
All right.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks,
All right.